is that you need to find a UCF faculty.
I even said that in my initial application. Like, this is a very specific.
All right, guys. We're going to get this going. If you haven't gotten pizza, go get pizza, whatever's left. Hopefully there's some left. This is a pretty awesome turnout considering the fact that I did not put this out a month in advance. So this is pretty exciting. Let's see here. What is going on? I want to congratulate the lovely Iron Yard kids last night. They did a really good job. I got to say kudos to you guys for coming out to a lot of the events because I had people actually ask me my thoughts on the class last night, like other companies. And so since I actually got to know you guys, I got to give feedback on my personal opinions of knowing you guys personally. So there's a perk on going to different events and actually talking to people is we also talk to each other as a company and other companies as well. So I got to give some good advice on some of you guys. So congratulations on that. Let's see. We have Orlando Tech coming up in 9 days. So whatever week that is, I'm a little cuckoo today. So don't mind me. I'm a little tired. So Orlando Tech's coming up. I think we're also doing a pub crawl with that too. And in 3 weeks, there's Code for Orlando. Right? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 weeks Code for Orlando. Sergio, is there anything else going on that I should tell people about? Event-wise? No? No. Okay. All right. So, aside from that, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. September's JavaScript is already booked. I have a lovely surprise if we can actually pull it off. Can't tell you about it yet. But once it happens, it should be really fun. Other than that, I am looking for mobile speakers next month since now I have the combined mobile meetup, if you guys did not hear about my buzz on all of that. Instead of having a iOS meetup in the beginning of the month and an Android at the middle of the month, it's now it's just going to be mobile on the third Tuesday of every single month. So the first Tuesday, I finally have a night off, guys. I haven't had a Tuesday off since November of last year, so very happy about that. Aside from that, also Ruby speakers as well. I know I got a couple mix in there for September. But further ado, I would like to welcome Miss Alyssa. She's new to speaking at University JavaScript. I have 2 new speakers tonight. I like new speakers. All right, you're good to go talk about yourself, my dear.
Cool, thank you. Hey, oh my goodness, how are you guys tonight? Good. So, a little curious, what is the Angular-JavaScript knowledge in the room? Are we like advanced? No? Are we like, I know Angular, but that's about it? Like a little bit? Who's like, I am a god or goddess at Angular? Do I have any of those? No? David, raise your hand. All right, well, let me go ahead and screen share. Woo. All right. So I am a teacher at Code School, and I did a course called Staying Sharp with Angular. It's a more advanced course, but David and I actually worked on the first one, which is free on there. So if you're a beginner, jump on that. If you're ready for something more advanced after this talk and you're like, hey, I want to know more about that stuff, then there's that. Alongside with everything that I'm talking about, I'll be mainly going into directives and routes tonight. I'm kind of ending it with, and here's what it might sort of look like in 2.0. And I don't know how many of you guys have actually like looked into 2.0, like tried to use it, read the docs, maybe read NG Book by Ari Lerner. We got a couple. Yeah. So it's not there yet. It's not ready, but there is some information that we do have, and so I'll be showing you what we do know. So TypeScript. I've been looking more and more into that lately, obviously, because I want to know what 2.0 is going to be like. And Carlos Souza, who's going to be doing a lightning talk tonight, he's actually teaching a course upcoming on ES6. So ES5, JavaScript now. Then we have ES6, which encompasses ES5 and a little bit more. And then you have TypeScript, which is what Angular 2 will be written in. And it's just this big mama superset that has even more wondrous things. So kind of some back knowledge. So here's this application, Angular Note Wrangler, which God help the content person who came up with that name. It was not me. But I had to say it about 1,000,000 times, and Angular and Wrangler don't go, it was always Angular, Wrangler. Like, that was what it was. So there's this note-taking app that we have, and so everything with Angular tonight will be in the context of this application. So, directives currently. So, we have a notes HTML, which has some beautiful HTML here. It's going to build out those notes that we've seen. And of course, there's some duplicate code. So directives, you can use them to create a template expanding directive, which is pretty basic. You just take out the duplicate code, you stick it in an HTML file, and then you're going to replace that with the little NW card tag. We'll then create the directive. We'll name it NW card. We'll restrict it to E, and we'll link this template URL, which is what we just grabbed that stuff and stuck it inside. So how many of you know what the heck this is? Seen it? Know what a directive is? Used to it? We got like a third maybe. Cool. I love directives. And in that wonderful talk, if any of you saw it, for Angular 2, they put up a big tombstone with directives written on it. Rest in peace. It was quite awful, actually. Everything about Angular that I love, they put a big tombstone up with, and it was just this talk of like, why Angular? So these are awesome, but the future of directives will look a little bit different. I'm going to get a bit more into how you build them out. Besides just restricting to E, which that's saying I'm going to be an element directive, and giving the template URL. You also have an optional controller that you can give it. And then controller as card, which anyone know what scope is? Yes, no, maybe? You can either choose to attach to scope, or you can choose to attach to this keyword that we gave it. So inside our controller, we're just going to do something super static and say this dot header on our note equals note title. And then inside of the NW card, which has that duplicate HTML that we pulled out, we'll use our beautiful bracket card dot header. And so if we pulled up the note, it would literally just be a simple note that's styled and says note title. So and we're using this, of course, to bind the data for the template. So this, alternatively, is what you do if you want to use the scope syntax. So if you're at all into Angular or listening to the community, a while back there was this whole hubbub about, ooh, scope versus controller as, and I still to this day get that question. And so what they mean by that is we could attach to scope instead of this, go ahead and get rid of the controller as and the card. And so we're just saying header, and we're attaching directly to the scope of our directive. It's all cleaned up, beautiful. I personally like it that way, but. And then again, you pull up the note card, it looks exactly the same as it did. This is a little recap between the differences on $scope and controller as, or this. So as you can see, inside of our JavaScript, you're either saying this dot header or you're saying scope dot header. And then inside your HTML, you're either saying card dot header, which is using that controller as keyword, or you just say header. So either way, whichever you choose to use currently in 1x, they both yield the same result. They're the exact same thing. $scope has a little bit more that you can use it with. For instance, you can call $apply or $watch with scope, which you can't do with this. But honestly, there's just not that many use cases for it. And if you're not advanced yet, or this still looks confusing, then controller as is the way to go. So the future, directives are dead, and the new thing is now going to be called components. Anybody into components? Heard of it? Studied it a little bit? We got like 3 woos! So components are the new directives. Angular 2 components will be replacing them. And a glimpse of a component is these 3 different parts. You need a component annotation. You also need a view annotation and then a definition class. So in order to start things off, we'll go ahead and do the component annotation. It's literally just an @ component. Inside that, you can give it a selector, which this is going to reference. Okay, so it's the CSS selector. So, sorry, let me go ahead and go to the next one, show you what I mean by that. Nope. I'll get back to it once I have the actual view out. So the view annotation comes next, and similar to the component one, any guesses? It's literally just @view. And this is where you pass in your template. And we have my El Template O. That's my Spanish. See? I'm being bilingual, Carlos. Yes. All right. You guys are like dead tonight. That's hilarious. Jeez. All right. So we have this cool ability to use backticks in your template and have multiple lines. I personally am not in love with this. I would prefer to just say template URL and then link to my template. Just because, yes, this is only 3 lines, but your template can be, and generally is, a lot longer than that, and I like to keep my JavaScript cleaner than just inlining some HTML. So our view annotation is taken care of. So now the third part is a definition class for our component. So templates read from their component controllers. They have access to properties inside this class. So class hello world, because this is obviously not for real. And inside that, you can set properties. And this is kind of new to TypeScript, where you actually say, I'm a string. And so the header with the type of string is set, but then inside your class, you can go ahead and give a constructor function. And this is called anytime a new instance of this class is created. And so we'll create our constructor. We'll say, hey, header, let's do something with you, which kind of looks familiar, hopefully. We said, header, let's give you a static string of note title. And so, yes, the constructor is where you're going to perform any initial setup for new objects. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Obviously, we're not going to have things like hello world in there. But as far as the docs right now say and what I could put together, it's directive versus component, which is where we're going. Does anybody have anything else to add? Because I really would like this to be like an open discussion of like, no, that's completely wrong. I found this, or I've talked to Brad from the Angular team, or anything. Anybody seen anything else? Tell me, Carlos.
Comment, like, I'm not as familiar with Angular as I am with other JavaScript frameworks, but one benefit that I see is like I can hear everybody speaking like conversion to the same language. Where before, one would say, hey, we have a controller. Someone else would say, I have a directive. Now everybody's talking about components.
Yes. That was one of the talks that a lot of Angular people got pretty pissed off. Because you're taking away our freedom. Because you're making, it more of like, you do this. You don't have as many options. Because honestly, it was just kind of willy-nilly. You could use a link, or you could use a controller, or you could use this. So, are there any other like comments though? So, yes, David.
So what's the tie together for these 3 things? How does Angular know that the Hello World class goes together with that NW category item component and gets pulled into the template URL? Seems like there's some magic in there somewhere.
I don't know TypeScript well enough, do you? No?
I do know TypeScript fairly well.
Tell us. I would really love to know if you have.
I don't see anything that ties those 3 together. It's just the annotation at the top of the class.
So you're saying that it's just the annotation at the top of the class, or you're saying I'm missing something?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I honestly don't know. I've been going through, and I'll list out some links.
Turning a blind eye to the Angular 2.0.
Isn't that frightening? No, seriously. If you go, yeah, you go to the docs and you'll click on a link and you'll be like, yeah, router config. Tell me about router config. And then it'll literally be like a header and then nothing. And you're like, wait, did I internet? What's happening? And it's legit just like that incomplete right now, which is definitely why I think it's so hard to convert or use. But there are some really good, this guy made a blog post and really knows TypeScript kind of things, which I linked to a couple of those at the end. But I would love, yeah, tell me things. David K. David K has something to say.
I do have something. Those aren't as scary or magic black boxy as they look. That's just syntactic sugar for decorators. So imagine this Hello World class being wrapped with this view function, like you stick it inside the view function and it spits out a Hello World class with that extra view information appended to it. And then you wrap that again with the components function. So basically it's just functions wrapping each other.
That sounds really like peace and love. Let's all wrap each other. Really. No, yes, sorry, Sergio.
I was just going to say that, that's really, we're looking to TypeScript, but JavaScript, 7 actually has a proposal to do just that natively.
Yeah.
Oh, question.
Yeah.
Is ECMAScript heading to TypeScript?
No.
Other way around. TypeScript is going to be in full parity with ECMAScript.
Right.
Eventually? Past 7 or tomorrow? Do we have any ideas? It's one of those, maybe we'll see that happen? I should know, if there was an announcement or something, because that was one of the things that I'm wait, is because especially since it's we have ES5, ES6, and then TypeScript, I was maybe we're eventually, but you're saying it's the other way around?
Yeah, TypeScript is trying to be fully compatible with ECMAScript, 6 and 7. Of course, they add their own stuff because of Microsoft. So.
Does anybody?
Behind TypeScript was just originally to provide type annotations to JavaScript. Because it's a typeless language. Any variable I can put a string in there today, and then I can put an array in there, and then I can put whatever else in there that I want. So the basic principle behind TypeScript was to give us an easier class syntax, and also to annotate the types of variables and parameters to functions.
But it did grow from that, right? They added.
Of course it does. Right? Engineers get involved in that.
So that, my friends, yes, ma'am. Oh, is there another? Oh, I have a blue and a stripe. Who wants to go first? Yes.
Integrated in Angular Socket IO?
Is what being integrated?
The components with Angular Socket.
I haven't used Angular Socket. Angular Socket fans? No? I can look it up for you afterwards and get back to you, but I don't know right now. Blue shirt. You had nothing? Was that fake? You faked me out? So, routes currently. Oh, we have another question? Lewis!
Hi. Can a component extend another component? Can you put
Extend?
inside of component?
Yes.
Okay.
There are, and don't giggle at that. Yes, you can. There's it's kind of, David, is it the same as basically you have a directive wrapping and another directive?
Well, it's TypeScript, so it's not going to follow the old directive. Damn you people, for killing our directives. Sounds like I understood.
Right.
In TypeScript, we have classes, and we can extend other classes. So extending a component would likely just extend. Of course, read the docs one day, and they'll tell you. But
One day.
If I'm relying on TypeScript to extend that component, then I would just use the extend keyword. That would probably break it as well, right? Because so all the stuff is moonsign.
Did you have anything you wanted to say? No? Oh, I want to hear your grumbles.
No.
No? All right. I mean,
I don't know why they're polluting JavaScript with classes.
Thank you.
It's a boilerplate-based language. It's easy. It's logic that way.
you know,
Just when I felt
Grumble,
like I didn't like
grumble.
I started with JavaScript. I kind of dabble with Ruby since I'm with those awesome Ruby devs at Code School. But JavaScript is like all I know, like that's my language. And so whenever people start complaining about why are you adding classes, I don't have anything to reference as far as like, oh yeah, blah 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 uses classes and we're not like blah blah blah. So I like kind of get it because I'm like, oh, I don't want things to change, but not as much as other people who are more multilingual. So
The reason I don't like it is because that is the beauty of JavaScript simplicity. Once you start polluting it with classes and stuff like that, it's going along with people who are trying to make JavaScript be some other language.
Oh, yeah.
It loses its scheme and Lisp-like charm.
I know. If there's so many people, I wonder what community it is that's pushing it in the other direction. Because I've heard grumbling similar to that, so I don't understand.
Syntactic changes, like the language isn't different. Like you have classes in JavaScript, you guys just make a variable and start shoving some functions in there. Like now it's a class. You just don't have to do that. You can write it in a way that other people can read the code and understand what the syntactic sugar. Because if you compare JavaScript to like anything else, like it's just a confusing mess. So.
And again, it's all right. I'm gonna reel it back in.
The teacher made me
Grumble. No, I'm sorry. Pardon. I'm reeling it back in so that we can have time for our 2 lightning talks that we were promised by Carlos and Sergio. Putting them on the spot to make sure they do it. But yeah. So routes currently, our 4 steps to route happiness are use ngView, load the route library, import ngRoute, and define your route. So using ngView, which allows us to tell our app, this is where you load it in. This is where it all gets wired together. So in our index file, you just literally say ngView. The next part is going to be loading the library, which is yet again in the HTML. We'll just say script tag and give it the Angular route. The 3rd out of the 4, including ngRoute in our app. So we go ahead and say angular.module, and then our app name, note Wrangler, and then you go ahead and say ngRoute right there. That's one of our dependencies. And now you can go ahead and create your routes file. We're going to append the .config to angular.module, note Wrangler, and then we'll pass it $route provider. Why not set angular.module to the app variable? Ugh, I'm tired of that. You ever get tired of like, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? Oh, just do what I say and just stop asking questions. I have so many students that tweet me this all the time, and I'm like, I answered that like 5 minutes ago. So a lot of times people will say var app or var my app or what have you. Set it equal to your Angular module, and then go ahead and use that shortened version to append their directives or what have you. This is just a bad practice because in JavaScript you don't want to clutter up your global window. It's very super simple. So that is why we're saying Angular module every single time, and then we'll say .config, pass it the route provider. But actually defining our routes. You have .when, which adds a new route, and .otherwise. So if none of these things match, then do this thing. And actually declaring a route now. We'll say route provider .when, and then you'll give it the /notes. That's just whatever is in your HTTP bar. And then give it the template URL that you want it to route to. We're at /notes now, which is kind of hard to read, and it was loading in our notes. Another thing that you can do is when it's just blank, go ahead and go to our index page. And like I said earlier, you have an otherwise, which you can use to redirect to any route that you would like. This seems very simple and boring to me. Do you guys use this in your everyday lives or no? No? Yes? Yes? You look familiar. You're a familiar face, okay. Nobody else? Nobody's Angular routes? So in 2.0, do the exact same thing, say Angular module, you'll pass it the new router dependency, and then on a controller, we're going to go ahead and pass in $router, and we'll say myController.routerConfig, and this is where it's different. So remember the component that we created before that replaced directives? You give it the path as usual, but you also give it a component. And that component has the template URL or the inline template that we talked about earlier. Bloop, bloop. And then instead of ngView, it's ngViewport and user, which is going to map to this guy. There is also a redirect to, which is very similar to the exact same of the redirect that we saw earlier. You don't pass it a component, but you do say /user, so it's just going to redirect on the slash. I don't know why that comes first. Literally. I see it everywhere. And I tried to swap it around, but then I kept seeing more and more things where they always put the redirect first, which seems very backwards to me, right? I don't know. Maybe? Anybody? No comments? I don't know why that comes first, but in all of the docs that I've seen, it always does. So some of the promised links that I have for you. There are nested components, and this is the router side to the nested component. So there's a bunch more to dive into. You can go ahead and check that out. Or this guy over here wrote a very nice blog post about it, which I kind of prefer blog posts over docs sometimes. So thank you guys so much. You are all wonderful. Twitter handle, I will be tweeting the link to the PDFs later. So yeah, and we do dive more into this in the Code School course. Thank you guys.
Just hand me the mic and you're good.
Cool, cool.
All right, thank you, my dear.
Maybe.
Ooh, there we go. All right, so a funny little ha-ha while he eventually gets off his computer and gets over here. At 4:30 this afternoon, this is why you have to be careful sometimes when you come to speak at my events. I also know him, so I can do this. He emailed me going, hey, something went wrong with my computer. Can I reschedule for the next one? No. Oh, I literally said that. I was like, no, this is not the meetup you call out on. Also, too, this one has been begging to speak at a meetup for probably a good couple months now. Mainly, he wanted to do CSS, but I wouldn't let him because it just fills too quickly before he can get to it. But, is it HDMI?
No, it's a mini.
It's a mini? Hold on.
I have one.
A few others, too. So, yeah. No, that's not a mini. Okay, yeah, grab yours. So that's pretty much the little funny ha-ha over here, because he finally got it to work, but we were possibly going to have to use my laptop, because I told him we will find a way. You were not showing up tonight. But just like Alyssa said, Carlos and Sergio are going to give lightning talks as soon as Christian's done.
And Bruno.
Oh, and Bruno. All right, I got 3 lightning talks.
They'll be really quick though, so beer, don't worry about that.
Yes, if you've never been to my meetup before, we do buy the first round of beer over at World of Beer after this, because we like to continue on the networking, and it's kind of boring to network without beer. Let's face it. A lot of you guys talk a lot better after you have a beer in your hand.
Or worse.
Yeah, or worse. Yeah, or talk too much and get yourself in trouble. We also do, on your way out, or after Christian's done over here, there are Code School swag I have over here. So aside from, got little stickers, some buttons, and some little screen cleaner things for Code School. So grab those. And then if you didn't get a ticket while he's hooking up, raise your hand, please. Holy crap. All right. The mic's down here, Christian. All right.
seen every book.
Okay. Keep that hand up.
Well, so there you go.
You can really look at my the light here. Oh. All right. Always do. All right, it's easier for me to come behind you. You don't get another one, do you? There you go.
So how that website, did you ever do anything with it?
Rackspace discontinued. They shut down my servers.
Oh, really?
Because I changed my card.
Okay.
But now I'm going to DigitalOcean.
DigitalOcean?
I gotta deal with that.
Yeah. I was expecting to see something, man. Like,
It's been a lot on it for a while.
yeah. You ready? Okay, so everybody, my name is Christian, and I'm gonna give a talk on Gulp and Grunt. This is something that, how many people here consider yourselves front-end devs, or maybe not, or like back-end dev? How many consider front-end devs? Okay, that's pretty much everyone. JavaScript is a front-end language. I think though, when you're using it like Angular, and especially Node, kind of using it like a back-end language, so the skill level is a little higher. When you're doing Gulp and Grunt, these are automated build processes, and so especially like in the corporate world, or even for yourself, if you're doing a lot of freelance work and you're building a lot of projects, it's good to be able to use these things. It's even better when you're able to build it, because chances are wherever you work at, if the company has like a build process, it's usually not that involved. So it's a chance for you to actually know something that some other dev on your team may not know. So hopefully this is something that'll introduce you to that world. How many people here use Gulp or Grunt? So pretty much everybody. And how many people prefer Gulp over Grunt? That's the last question. So I prefer Grunt, and I actually have now the ability to speak to why. Gulp is very fast, and we'll get into it, but Grunt allows you to do much more complex build processes. I think you can combine the two. I think that's what I've learned, is that if you actually needed to use both of them, you could. So we'll get started. This, just to let you know, I called the other presentation, this would be like episode 3, because we did a CSS meetup, and we talked about SAS and Foundation. And I was using, I had a Yeoman generator, used the Grunt process, and that's how I was, configuring my SAS and compiling it. That was that talk, and then this would kind of be like the talk that would lead into that. So if you wanted to go back and watch that process, you could. So we'll get started. All right, so someone laughing on one side? No, I'm joking. All right, so automate your workflow. There's a lot of plugins. The Gulp and Grunt both use plugins. And by the way, you don't necessarily have to use Gulp or Grunt. You could just use NPM, no packages if you feel that that's better for you. You don't have to use this. Also, one of the benefits is that you can create projects a lot quicker. I fire up a folder, my project folder. I use Yeoman. This talk isn't about Yeoman. Anybody familiar with the Yeoman scaffolder? There's some really good generators out there. I'll share the one that I use for a foundation. But it allows you to get a project up and running really quickly. So another good thing about these programs, anybody ever hear of CodeKit? It's on a Mac. CodeKit allows you to like compile less, or SAS, kind of gives you like this build process. It's GUI based, and I think it only works on a Mac. I may be wrong. What'd you say?
Only for Macs.
It's only for Macs. So like my office, it's about half Mac, half PC, and basically like our PC devs weren't compiling less. So that's not good. This is something that can, be available for any OS, Linux, Mac, Windows. That's also, a good thing. It gives you the ability to create, like you have your dev builds, right? Your developers are working and they're, producing code, and then you have your publishing builds. And we'll talk about that, like what you can do as far as separating those processes out, so that you really get clean code and your files get cleaned up a lot towards the end of your build process. There you go. Increases job security because, like I said, chances are someone on your team, most people on your team have no idea what this is or how to build it, even though they may have the ability to type in the word grunt. That's not having a good understanding of like what it does or what it's doing or how to build one. So we'll talk about Gulp first. Now, see, Gulp was new to me, so I took the challenge of getting into it a little bit, learning it, and seeing like what the difference was. One of the things that I found out when I was reading articles on the internet or blog posts was that everybody did this like grunt versus gulp, like grunt should just die and never use it ever again, And it's really not like that. They're very similar, but they have their strengths, and I think you should know that. And like I said, even in a combination of use would seem more practical to me than just dismissing one versus the other. So it uses node streams, and then it also has pipes that it pipes through data through functions, right? And that's very familiar, JavaScript to everyone. It runs mostly asynchronously. Now, everybody thinks that that's probably a great thing. It allows it to be a lot faster, the streams and the asynchronous build processes, but it's asynchronous to a fault. That was the first thing that I figured out, is that you need to do things in steps, especially in a complex build. So if you're doing everything at once, that's not good. You need to concatenate and then minify and then distribute and then copy or clean. Grunt does that a whole lot better. And in fact, I lied, I'm gonna ask one more question. How many people use Grunt 4? Yes. The fourth version. Sorry, Gulp 4. Gulp 4. Okay. So I've installed Gulp 4 because Gulp 3 point whatever totally turned me off. I was like, this is not going to work. There's no way that you can do the stuff that I do in Grunt with Gulp. Now, Gulp 4 addresses that serializing part, and it does things in series, so we'll see that. But that's much more useful, especially to a front-end developer. So that's that, 4.0. And when you install it, I'll show you guys an install guide to install 4. If you already have Gulp installed, you have to uninstall it. It can kind of be a pain in the ass a little bit, so be careful with that. Also, Gulp doesn't have as many plugins. It's not as mature as Grunt, but I think 4 will definitely help that out for sure. So that's something to take a look at. Gulp 4 has been out. It's been in development for a while, so I'm not sure why it's taken so long to be in release. But and then there's recipes. So Gulp has these recipes for their, I would say, their not being fully matured, and the recipes are there to help you. They're to give you guidance and help you with your builds, stuff like that. So there's that. This one to me is the most complete task runner. It has a lot of plugins, a lot of mature ones. Some that are even dying out. And that's the one that you use and you love, and you're like, no, keep continuing building it. But it handles more complex tasks. I'm going to show you one that is, I had one that was on an ASP.NET MVC framework, and that I built for that purpose of Foundation, because Microsoft's initial reaction to using Grunt or Gulp was to throw in Bootstrap, and I can't stand Bootstrap, so I built a Foundation one, but I also put in a whole build process to it. And what it allows you to do, it allows a front-end developer to work in their front-end project alongside with a back-end developer doing C# or Visual Basic or whatever, and combine the two together. Unfortunately, that broke along with my Windows 10 upgrade, so I'll be showing that, but I'll show a little miniature version of it today. It's very flexible. I mean, you can throw anything at it. You can almost imagine any type of build process. At my company, we had to do something. I work for Starwood, and like if you look in the the DOM, if you look at it, there is like way too many files. Like you can get capped off at like how many CSS files you can call, and we hit that. Like, so this is like, they were like, could you build us something? So that's, you can get into very complex build processes and really do a good job using Grunt to deal with that. I don't know if you could technically do the same thing in Gulp because I'm not as addressed. Somebody that's better, we'll talk about some of the Grunt stuff, but I'd be interested to see if you can do the exact same thing in Gulp. So that's that. Other ways of automating your workflow, NPM, Broccoli, there's some other ones out there. Or you could use a combination of the two. I think you can even take a Grunt, there's a Grunt plugin that can call in Gulp, run Gulp tasks. That makes a lot of sense. I want to play with that. To me, that would make sense. One of the things you notice right away, like for example, in Grunt, if you have a lot of JavaScript files, to uglify or minify those, it can take forever. Like it can be moments of a build process, which is way too long. Gulp would handle that a lot better. Same thing with compilation of less or SAS files too.
Why do you think that is?
Well, again,
Is it just because the process takes time, and regardless of what you're using?
No, there's a difference. You're talking about Gulp, which is a streaming, pipe,
Right.
like Node.js technology, and it's using that really well. Is where Grunt is using the full, memory disk allocation, and it's running off the disk, and it's not the same. It doesn't give you the same speeds. You'll notice it during, when you're compiling like a lot of files. You'll notice it. One of the things in Gulp that I noticed right away is it goes from like microseconds to like nanoseconds. It tells you like how fast it's doing everything. Where Grunt has a better job at verbosely telling you like what's going on. It's not like a speed thing. So, and we'll see some of that. This is a Sway like PowerPoint presentation that there'll be a link to. So I'll provide that link, and everybody can get this. These are great little article or blog posts to get started. One of them has a little, like I said, recipe in there, which I had to go to figure out how to serialize tasks. And then this one here that I just put in there, this is the generator that I'll use for the Grunt process. That's a really good one if you like Foundation. I think he has one for Bootstrap too, but it's a generator that you can start up projects like that, and it's really, really good. And then we'll go into it. So, and this Sway article for the SAS talk, that's in there as well. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can see that too. All right. Oh, I had to do it just for you.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is the first time I've never seen it.
I found a goat picture, threw it in there.
It's a cute goat.
Yep, it's pretty cute. It does tricks. Stands on wood. All right. So, all right, let's get into it. Which one do you want to do first, Gulp or Grunt?
Gulp.
Let's do Gulp. Okay. So now this is like I didn't use a scaffolder. I didn't use any Yeoman project builder. So this is like all just me doing this in the last like 20 minutes, right? Now the things that I do, we'll go more into it with Grunt, but I mean, you need something that compiles your SAS or your less. You need something that can concatenate and minify, right? Those are the really big ones, especially the front-end developer, that you should be doing. How many people here use SAS or less? You're learning SAS. It can be the most simplest thing as CSS, but here, when I show you some of the other stuff, you'll see why I like it so much. But all right, so let's look at our Gulp file. Can everybody see that? No. All right, so you have your dependencies up here. These are dev dependencies for this project. Again, a scaffolder is a little better because it will have a package.json that lists all this stuff and has it predefined, so you can save your build basically, or the dependencies that you like. You can also define, another thing that you'll see is you'll define all your paths that you're using. So that's another big one too. But this is just like right now. This is something I did right this second. So what I want to show you, and this is the gulp folder. So basically I'm just going to run this process. So this is the command line for gulp. And right now, I have a default command in here that just is basically like a console log. So that's what it's doing. But if I go to a file, which are these files right here, this is a SAS file, right? So I go in there, make a change. These all have watch processes too, so if you make a change, it'll watch it. You can put live reload, so if you make a change, it changes the browser automatically. Does anybody ever purchase this? So that's there, and so what you do is you just type in gulp SAS, and it's going to run the process for you, right? So if I go back to my folder, this is where my SAS files are, and I go back to here, and this is where the CSS gets distributed to, okay? And I changed test2 to red, and now that's going to exhibit that in a CSS file, okay? So that's an example of using the SAS compiler, and it uses libsas, which is the faster C compiler for SAS. So that's pretty good. The next command that I put in there is gulp concat, which is concatenation. And what that's going to do is going to take this file, which is in my distribution folder. It's going to spit that file out to there. So now the next command I can do is gulp minify CSS. So it's going to go through and it's going to minify your files for you, right? Now, here's the first immediate thing that I noticed about the difference between gulp and grunt. And this is why I chose 4 over 3, because it immediately turned me off. How do you do these things together and have them done in specific steps? That's the important part. Because when you're doing a final build, you want to do a lot of different things at once. And in gulp, it's pretty difficult to do that. You see here, I put in a callback to this function basically to identify and say this is beginning and now this is ended, so you can go on to the next stream. That's what the callback's for. In the recipe, they even have a more difficult way to do this, and I don't see how you go beyond doing 2 tasks at once. I may be wrong, but I didn't see it. So for me, that wasn't too appealing. And I could be totally wrong because I'm not a gulp person, but we can talk about that later. But grunt, I know you can do it. It's very native to like just the way it works. All right. So what here with 4, what you are able to do is you see here I have some combinations. It's called gulp series, and this allows you to use your tasks in series, and it's pretty good. However, it's not that good. I don't know if that's why it hasn't been released yet. It seems a little buggy to me because it wasn't allowing me to do SAS and then going on to concatenate and minify. Maybe I have some stuff set up wrong, but we'll see how that works. So if you go here to gulp dist, it'll run both of those processes together. It works pretty well. The file it produces is this file right here, which is the minified file that we looked at. Now the thing about that is that's assuming that you had your less or your SAS files already compiled. So even if there wasn't any files in there, it doesn't even throw off like an error. It just compiles it and throws it in there if they were there. Ideally, you would want to run all three of those processes together. And that's why I call this gulp build, which is a combination of all three series. But it won't do the SAS part first. It won't like do it, finish, and then go on to the next task. So for me, that's a little bit of an issue. I don't know how you get around that, but that would be an issue for me. So any questions about gulp? No? All right. Grunt. So we'll go to grunt. We'll look at a grunt file. Sure. So this one is a little more spelled out. There's a lot more plugins in this one. You have your hinters, your linters, your clean processes, copy files from a location to the other. You can use image minification, CSS minification, JavaScript uglification, all those different things. These are your watch process. So basically, when you're saving your lesser SAS file, it's automatically updating your browser and looking for the change in those particular files. So that's all there. It also has a little miniature server built in. It's not like MAMP or anything like that, but basically allows you to see your front end changes onto the browser. WireDep. Anybody familiar with WireDep? Love WireDep. Basically, if you want to, and usemin and usemin prepare. Anybody familiar with those two? No? Okay. Let me show you usemin and usemin prepare. This is, let's say, your HTML file, okay? And all this here, you see this where it says Bower, CSS, and Bower, all these different things? This basically will inject Bower dependencies or packages into your CSS component or your JavaScript area, wherever this is designated. So you see there's some initial files that are linked to in your header. And then down here in your footer area, you have all these files here. These are all your JavaScript files, right? So you have jQuery, and then all these different foundation files, and then any other JavaScript files that you would want to include. So what happens is that when you go through the build process, it's going to condense, concatenate, minify, and change the URL all at once for you. It's going to do all those things for you. And so when you look at your console and you see how much that's cleaned up, it's like invaluable. Like how you could not be doing that, you should be doing that. If you're not doing that, everybody's going to go home and do that because it's better. See pages with like crazy load times and stuff. All right, so I want to go through the whole process of like, maybe I'll try to install a Bower package, but we'll do that. So whenever you do this, so yeah, I think this is grunt. So I'm going to call in a grunt task, which is the default task. Oh, it's already open. And this is the foundation build that comes down, right? And so it gives you this HTML file that you can basically, you can take the header and the footer and just build out whatever you want to in between. So this is a working, Foundation 5 build. But like I said, when you look here, there's a whole lot of stuff going on, right? And that's not, you don't want so many dependencies being called. Every one of those is something calling out. And you have to wait, the page has to wait for all these things to come through. So what you do is, you do grunt publish, And what Grunt publishes is what I've described here in the Grunt file to do all these different tasks, okay? It's going to move things around. It's going to put things in other folders. It's going to use mint prepare, validate your JavaScript, concatenate everything, CSS minify everything, uglify everything, and then basically just give you a really nice clean build, right? So here it is. This is the same exact file. And when you look at your console, it boils down to that, right? So all those files got shrunk and, condensed down to that type of build. So that's pretty convenient. It'll definitely clean up your process, but it also allows you to do a lot of cool things too. And I'll show one of those, actually. Anybody know any Bower packages offhand? No one's just memorizing Bower packages?
I knew it was something I forgot to do before I came in.
What'd you say?
Moment.js.
Moment? Moment.js? All right.
Time one, right?
The time set.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one. Let's do that one.
I said Broward.
Bro, you want a package, bro? Package me, bro.
Don't package it, bro.
So there's a lot of moments. Moment.js, okay. So, all right, remember I showed you the usemin, prepare, the usemin stuff in that HTML file? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the moment.js and call in that dependency and save it to my, essentially my project, right? So Bower install moment.js save. What? What is that? I'm on the internet. Yeah. No, that's fine. Who's talking? I can't tell who's talking. I'm looking at her. All right. This is the last thing. So I installed this, right? So now one thing I want to show you is that when I go to the index.html file, well, it's probably in the JavaScript part. Oh, yeah.
Tell him, man. Tell him.
But I still didn't do it. This is my wired process. This is what I was trying to tell you or show you. See, Grunt's slower.
Point proven.
Irrefutable proof.
So you see it automatically injects in there, and when you publish and finish your build, all that stuff will be in there. So it's a really great way to keep your dependencies and clean up your DOM. All right. So hope you enjoyed that. Maybe next time we do a yeoman talk. That's pretty cool too. Do a scaffolder. So that's it. Any questions? No? Everybody got it? All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, so Thank you, my dear. You did a good talk. You guys want to? All right, so we're going to do a couple quick lightning talks, and then we are out of here. These are just really entertaining, so I had to make sure we had this happen. Sorry, kids.
Oh, I have to put the microphone there.
Yeah, well, you can leave it right here, too, if you wanted. You don't have to put it on. As long as we can,
Perfect.
it's for YouTube.
Where do I plug it? I don't plug it.
Oh, right here. Do you...
I have
okay.
HDMI.
Cool.
For this thing.
Either one. Let's see if it works. Will it like you? Is it gonna like you? Right here.
Yeah, like that.
Yay! Sometimes it likes to do 2 players. Right?
Cool. Yeah. No, it's just that I don't have to put that on. So cool.
As long as it's right there on the desk, it picks up the volume.
Cool. All right, thanks, Caitlin, for giving us the opportunity to do this quick lightning talks. I don't want to hold you guys anymore from the beer part of this. So this is going to be real quick. I just want to share with you like a little nugget, something I worked on a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was very interesting. So I've been curious about React for quite some time. I heard it was good, so I decided to try it out. So what I did, I had this, I still have it. This is a jQuery plugin that I wrote a couple of years ago. It's called jQuery Thumb Preview. The GIF is not loading right now. I don't know why, but all right, it's loading right now. So basically what it does is as you move over an image, it will display the different thumbs that are available for that. And what is happening is actually down here. Let me have the code bigger. So if you have like an album of pictures, like a Facebook album or something like that, and you want people to see the thumb, the images that are on the album without actually having to click on the album, you just mouse over it, and what it'll do is it'll read the image paths that you give it to the data images data attribute, right? So you basically give it an array of image paths, and then the plugin will automatically calculate the dimensions that you need to switch the thumbs, right? So say you have 2 images, it will switch the images as you go across like the middle of the image, or if you have 3, every third part, and so on and so forth. So it basically does this automatically, and then I created a plugin for it, initially a jQuery plugin. So I decided to port it to React to see whether or not it would make a difference performance-wise, right? So first, like this is like the React code, and yes, I am using the class syntax because I wanted to try it out. I don't hate it, but I also don't love it in here. It's like, so I'm using a couple of ES6 stuff like lat and whatnot. All right, cool. But anyway, so I ported it, and what was interesting is that I compared the two, right? So after I ported it, I wanted to compare the React version with the jQuery version to see if there was any major impacts. And this was the interesting result that I got. So you can see that the painting on the jQuery is drastically bigger, larger than the one in React, right? So it takes about 123 milliseconds for the example that I ran in jQuery, and then the same thing in React, it took 6 milliseconds, right? And that was using Chrome DevTools, and this is using Firefox, which is kind of like the same measurement, but in a different view. So you can see like React, the painting is like really low, and then when you do the jQuery version, it just increased drastically. Yeah. Why? That is a good question. I do not know. Yes. So what's cool about it is that, like, I don't know, yes, it's a fact, but I benchmarked it, right? So I have data to prove that one is faster than the other, right? I can't explain why, but
it's because
you
React
have
is
proved
good.
your shitty jQuery code is slower than your shitty React code. So.
That might be it. So I just want to show you like how I did it. So if you guys ever want to port something from non-React to React, or if you ever just want to run a benchmark and to see whether or not something is worth pursuing or not,
So this is just DevTools. Can I make this bigger? Yeah, I can make this bigger. So this is the React version. This is the jQuery version. Let me go ahead and clear this, stop this, stop it. All right, so the first one is going to be using jQuery. So I'm going to record and just swipe it. 1, 2, 3, and stop. And then you can see painting is 36 milliseconds, right? 36, remember that. Got it. All right, cool. Now the same thing using React. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then stop it. Then you can see 8 milliseconds, right?
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, we got a demo! Woo!
Thank you.
Alright, next one is Sergio.
So, I'm here to talk about server-side rendering single-page applications. Do you know what single-page application is, everybody? Real quick. Yeah? All right, so once upon a time, I built a whole social media network on Angular, and that sucked. Yeah. So it sucked for a few reasons. Like, to me, the main one was like that it was so frustrating to have people copy and pasting links from our platform over to, say, Facebook, and all the preview had was like a bunch of like square brackets, and you guys know what I'm talking about, because it wasn't rendered on the server side. So then I learned that that might not be a good idea, but I loved building a single page app. You know, you don't need a full reload every time you're changing pages, right? That's super cool. So that's when I started, you know, researching and seeing like how can we go about rendering that JavaScript code on the server instead. So there's a few reasons why you want to do that, right? Other than SEO. So basically, for example, mobile phones. Single page apps are a little resource intensive. It takes a while to crunch all that, you know, HTML up on mobile. It's a better idea to ship that page rendered and ready, and then just add bindings after that. What I mean by that is, you know, you add click watchers and whatnot. It just, you know, kind of boots up from there. So let's see here. What other notes did I take before I get into code, and I could start and ready to do that. See here. So, well, the cool thing is that with server-side code, you basically get to share your libraries between browser and server. We used to call that isomorphic, but since we like to change things in JavaScript, we call that universal JavaScript now, because I don't know, who cares? But that's really cool. Now, the key thing about server-side rendering is that you're still doing the same work that the browser would be doing. Just because you're in the server doesn't mean that you're talking to a database directly. Your app is still talking to an API, just like the client would, and it's getting all that data and then shipping it ready to the browser. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right, cool. So real quick, I have, so there's a few frameworks that are allowing you to do that. Here are my, see here. So Ember is doing that. They're calling it Fastboot, and Glimmer was part of that. Angular 2, maybe, hopefully, I was brave enough to ask them at NGConf. I got to see that, and I asked the team, hey, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, maybe, hopefully. Didn't quite know, but then they didn't know much anyway. It is what it is. And then React. React, you can definitely do it, and the reason is that you're not relying on the DOM to do React. You have a virtual DOM, so it can basically produce strings, and then the server just spits out that string. Who cares? I got a quick simple code here for React. It's basically using Express. It's super simple. Whoa. Sorry, inside joke. I apologize. Anyway, I'm just including Express, and I'm basically forwarding all the Express requests over to this render app, and that's basically chatting. I'm using React Router, so I'm basically chatting React Router. Listen, here's the path. Give me the output, and it takes care of it all. Cool. This is all on my GitHub. It's public. Check out Sergio Cruz /React Boilerplate to see more. I was actually learning React when I first wrote this, so like my code's super ugly. Who cares? It works, right? That's it. Thank you very much.
All right. I heard react.